Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video we got another news and rumor video to discuss. In today's video we're looking at some signings from the past couple of days, some injury updates, some waiver updates, update with the Hartman suspension, plus we got a couple of trade rumors involving the Bruins, Canucks, Utah Hockey Club, and Buffalo Sabres. I'm going to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Hockey Channel. Now before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you all for your support. We'll never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below and don't forget to comment down in the comment section below. Something else in this video. We're on our way to 500 subscribers. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below. It really does help out the channel. So in today's video, we got a couple of pieces of news plus some rumors to talk about. We're going to start off as we usually do by looking at some signings for the past couple of days. Only one signing for the past few days, but it was a massive one. As recent trade acquisition, Marcus Pettersson, who's currently in the final year of a deal with the Vancouver Canucks, formerly of the Pittsburgh Penguins, was traded just last weekend by Pittsburgh Penguins to the Vancouver Canucks, has less than a week in Vancouver, and he's already signed an extension. Well, the Canucks have a lot of former Penguins staff members and guys like Rutherford and Alvin, so they know what they're getting at Pettersson, so they waste no time and sign Marcus Pettersson to a 6-year extension with AV of $5.5 million. Now, Pettersson is not going to put you up a whole bunch of points, but he is a top 5, top 10 defensive-minded defenseman in the NHL. He's a really good defensive guy, and there's a reason why the cost the Canucks a first-round pick to acquire him. Last year with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Pettersson put up a career-high 30 points, including 4 goals in 82 games, both being career highs. So far this year, had 3 goals and 18 points in 47 games with the Pittsburgh Penguins before being traded. In 3 games so far with Vancouver, he's gotten no points, so he doesn't have too many points, but the Canucks have a point in all 3 of those games that Pettersson's been in, so his defensive abilities have helped this Canucks team out a lot. So signing him is not too surprising. $5.5 million is maybe a little bit much. He was making $4 million this year and has been for the past couple of seasons, so I thought maybe $4.755 million. $5.5 million might be a little bit too expensive, but with the cap going up, I think it should be fine. Pettersson will be a solid defensive-minded second pair defenseman for the Canucks for years to come. So this is a really good pickup there. Obviously, the Canucks didn't just find a guy to help them in their defensive line for this year. They find someone to help them for this year and signed him so he can help them for a long period of time. So an interesting signing there. Not too surprised given that the Canucks front office is mostly former Penguins staff members, but interesting note there is the Canucks have signed Marcus Pettersson to a 6-year extension. That's the only signing we've seen from our past couple of days. Next, going over to a quick injury update. When it comes to the injury update, we do have a couple of things to talk about. First, with the Minnesota Wild, Jonas Brodin, who had missed 12 games with a lower body injury, and Marcus Johansson, who had missed 8 games with a concussion, were both active after injury reserve. Brodin long-term injury reserve, Johansson regular injury reserve, and both returned to game action on Tuesday. So big boost there for the Wild. Johansson's been a solid middle 6'4" for the past couple of years in Minnesota, while Brodin is a solid defensive-minded top 4 defenseman for the Wild. So to see those two guys both get back into game action is beautiful news there for the Wild. While Jacob Lauko is still suffering with a lower body injury, he's been in and out of the lineup due to it, and he's now been placed back on injury reserve, so it's a battle there for Lauko. He's definitely had a lot of injury troubles this year, so hopefully he recovers soon, and he's not going to be out for an over long period of time. St. Louis's Nick Leddy, who had missed 49 games with a lower body injury, was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Tuesday. Great news for Leddy. He had missed so much time, so seeing him get back into the lineup is really good, and the Blues get a solid top 6 defender back into the lineup too. So a big boost to the Blues blue line, but also to see Leddy get back and is now healthy. New York Rangers Adam Edstrom will be out the next 2 to 3 months due to a lower body injury he sustained on Saturday, so it's a bad blow there. Edstrom's not an overly significant player, but he actually been doing quite well in bottom 6 minutes, so to see him go down with an injury is not overly great, and Edstrom will most likely be out for the rest of the season. Utah's Dylan Guenther, who missed just under a month with a lower body injury, was activated off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Tuesday. Big boost there for Utah. He got the OT winner in that game against Philadelphia, so Guenther made his impact known early on in his return, and Guenther's a big piece, so to see him get back is fantastic news for Utah. Dallas's Miro Heiskanen, who has missed just over a week with a knee injury, has undergone a knee procedure and will be out month to month for the Dallas Stars. So good to see he's gotten the surgery taken care of and he's now on the road to recovery, but that's going to be a long period of time without the Stars' best defenseman. Heiskanen will probably be out until right around the end of the season, close to the start of the playoffs, so it'll be interesting to see exactly when he winds up returning, but still it's an interesting loss there for the Stars to see Heiskanen be out now. Buffalo's Tage Thompson missed Tuesday's game with an upper body injury that he suffered a couple of days earlier, and he's now day-to-day day, so that's the battle there for the Sabres to lose their star top-line center. Mattias Samuelsson missed Tuesday's game due to an injury and is now out on injury reserve, so it's a battle there for the Sabres to lose Samuelsson for the next little while. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen missed Tuesday's game with a minor injury in his day-to-day, so bad news to see Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen out for the next little while, Tage Thompson out for the next little while, and awful news to see Samuelsson, who's already missed a ton of time over the past couple of years due to injury. He placed in injury reserve, so bad stuff there for Buffalo. Matthew Barzal missed Tuesday's game and is now going to be out indefinitely with a lower body injury and is placed in injury reserve, so hopefully it won't be an overly extreme period of time, but Barzal's at least going to miss probably the next couple of weeks for the Islanders, so it's a battle there for New York I. While Hudson Fasching, who has been out a month due to an upper body injury, was recalled from his conditioning stint and may return in the very near future, so that could be a really good boost there for the Islanders to get a solid bottom six forward and Fasching back in the not too distant future. Boston's Marcus Pettersson, who had missed a few weeks with an undisclosed injury, was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action back over on Tuesday, so that's really great news there for the Bruins to get Pettersson back. Erik Haula, who's been a solid third-line center, who had missed a month with a sprained ankle, was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Tuesday, so big boost there for the Devils center group, especially with Nico Hischier currently out. Nicolas Deslauriers, who had been out nearly 3 months with an upper body injury, was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Tuesday, so Deslauriers is a solid fourth line checking forward, so to see him get back into the lineup is really great news there for the Flyers. Vancouver's Quinn Hughes is scheduled to miss his third straight game over on Thursday as he continues to deal with a hand injury. It's starting to come into question if he's going to be able to play in the Four Nations face-off, so that's a bad blow there for Hughes, for the Canucks, and potentially even for Team USA in the Four Nations face-off, so that's a bad blow there for the Canucks. Depth forward Lane Peterson has undergone successful shoulder surgery and will be out the rest of the year, so Peterson's been playing majority in the AHL, has been a call-up option though, so that's a bad blow there for the Oilers to see Peterson be out, and hopefully he won't be out for an overly long period of time. Craig Smith in Chicago, who had missed 11 games due to a back injury, was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Wednesday, so big boost there for the Hawks bottom six to see Craig Smith, who's a solid veteran, get back into the lineup. While Connor Timmins won't play on Thursday due to an upper body injury and his day-to-day, so it's a big blow there for the Leafs to lose their third pair defenseman to an injury. So some interesting injury updates from the past couple of days. Good to see guys like Deslauriers, Haula, Guenther, and Brodin all get back into game action. Hopefully they don't look too rusty in their returns. The bad news to see guys like Heiskanen, Thompson, Barzal, and Hughes all go down with injuries, and hopefully they won't be out for an overly long period of time, but some interesting injury updates from the past couple of days. Next, going over to a quick waiver update. Only have one waiver update to talk about here, and that was back over on Tuesday. We saw the Nashville Predators place Vinnie Hinostroza on waivers. Hinostroza had been a call-up option. The Predators were dealing with some injuries, wanted to get one of their other call-up options into the mix. They played a couple of games at the NHL level, but now the Predators are trying to get a little bit healthier. They wanted to try and get some other guys into the lineup, so they placed Hinostroza on waivers and sent him back down to the minors. Well, that didn't happen. Hinostroza was actually claimed off of waivers by the Minnesota Wild. I thought there was a possibility. Hinostroza was on a one-year deal, very cheap. He could help any team who needs some bottom six help, but I thought with him sort of spending the majority of this year and last year in the AHL that he'd probably wound up clearing, but he didn't. Like we said, Wild claimed him, so I think it could be a really good solid bottom six forward there for the Wild. I think he's a little bit more of a solid bottom six forward than guys like Shore or Jones are, but still, I think he could be a solid guy with guys like Kaprizov and Lauko still out right now. I think that could be a really good boost there for the bottom six, and they can place him back on waivers once guys like Kaprizov get healthy enough. So it'll be interesting to pick up there for the Wild. I'm not sure how long Hinostroza will stay in Minnesota before being placed on waivers again, so it'll be interesting to note there, but that's an interesting pickup there for the Wild to get Hinostroza off of waivers from one of their Central Division rivals. So an interesting pickup there, but the Wild do get Hinostroza from the Predators off of waivers, so an interesting pickup there for Minnesota. It was the only waiver update we saw from over the past couple of days. One last thing to talk about here before we get into the trade rumor portion of the video, and that's with Minnesota Wild forward Ryan Hartman. He has indeed applied to appeal the current suspension that he's on, and he's on a 10-game suspension. I think he's already missed like 2 or 3 games of it, so he's still got a handful more games. That's mostly going to be handled after the Four Nations face-off, so it'll be interesting to see if he's able to appeal it and get the number of games down at least a little bit, so maybe like 6, 7, 8, or 9, or if the NHL will wind up keeping his suspension at the 10 games. So it'll be interesting to see if they do wind up winning the appeal or not, but Hartman has indeed officially appealed his suspension, and we'll have to wait and see if he wins it or not. But some interesting updates when it comes to that suspension. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. So when it comes to the trade rumors, we got a couple of things to talk about here. First, with the Utah Hockey Club. Now, we talked about this in I think either our last video or one of our recent videos about how the Chicago Blackhawks are prepared to make big offers and go on really big runs to try and go after guys like Mikko Rantanen or Mitch Marner in the offseason. Well, another team that's gearing up to make a big run at one of the big UFAs this year is the Utah Utah Hockey Club. Now, Utah, whatever last name they wind up being, is currently open to spending a lot of money in the offseason, and that would include taking runs at both Mitch Marner and Mikko Rantanen should they hit the free agent market. Now, like we talked about in that Chicago video, not sure if Rantanen or Marner will hit free agency. Very likely chance they could re-up with Carolina or the Leafs, where they are right now. There's a very likely possibility that does happen, but if they don't, I could definitely see Utah try and make some sort of big upgrade. They didn't really make a whole bunch of really big upgrades in the free agent market this year. They mostly did it in the trade market by adding guys like Sergachev and Marino, but they didn't really do much to their forward group. So if they really do feel like they could get some major upgrades in the forward group this year, I think there's a very likely possibility we could see guys like Rantanen or Marner be targeted by the Utah Hockey Club, and they would be in those top 2 free agent sweepstakes. So like we said, I'm not exactly sure if these two guys are even going to hit the free agent market, but if they do, keep your eye on the Utah Hockey Club, as they could be a big player this year in free agency for those 2 players. And if they don't have those 2 players options, maybe they could go after one of those other top end free agents. So we're going to wait and see on that. Going over to the Buffalo Sabres, according to Kevin Weekes, he recently put out a tweet over on Twitter, and he said that the Buffalo Sabres have recently had expression of interest in forward Dylan Cozens from multiple teams, including, he says, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Montreal Canadiens, the Detroit Red Wings, and the Calgary Flames. So this is interesting. We know Cozens has been a hot commodity. It sounds like over half the league has inquired on Cozens and see if he's available. Like, it seems like the Sabres are going to have a whole bunch of asking prices to mull over, and it's going to be interesting to see if they do wind up pulling the trigger on their trade or not. The 4 teams that were mentioned are all interested. We know that the Canadiens could probably use another forward. I'm not exactly sure what they would want to give up in a Cozens trade, but I could definitely see him have some interest in him. Detroit, we talked about how Detroit and Buffalo were linked earlier in the year, a couple months ago, about how there's a possibility they could try and hook up on a trade. And then there was some talk that was around Cozens. Could that still be a possibility? We know that the Leafs are looking for a center upgrade. Could they go after Cozens? And there's been a lot of recent speculation that the Flames, after acquiring Farabee and Frost from the Flyers, may look at Cozens and try and upgrade right now with a younger type of player. And their rebuild might sort of be like a retool to try and get younger. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens there. I'm not guaranteed that the Cozens is going to get moved, because I still think he's a valuable second line center and could really help out that Sabres team. But if they were to trade him, it does seem like they would have a ton of offers, and teams like Toronto, Detroit, Montreal, and Calgary, who do have a lot of interest in trying to upgrade their center market, could have a lot of interest in Dylan Cozens. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But keep your eye on Cozens, as he's a very likely name to watch out for when it comes to the trade market over the next month leading up to the trade deadline. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Next, going over to the Boston Bruins, we have 2 things to talk about when it comes to them. First, David Pagnotta is talking about the Boston Bruins and a couple of pending UFAs they could trade, and that's Trent Frederic and Justin Brazeau. And he says that the Bruins are going to wait and be patient on potentially trading these guys. He says that Don Sweeney really wants to wait until closer to the deadline to see if the Bruins can stay in the playoff hunt. I think they're currently tied for the last playoff spot, but have played more games than the teams they're tied with. So all the teams in the race with the Boston Bruins have played less games than them, so the Bruins are in a really difficult position. But I think Don Sweeney really wants to know if this Bruin team can really keep pace for a playoff spot. I think if they reach the deadline at like 3, 4, maybe even 5 points out of a playoff spot, I think they will start to sell pieces. But I think the Bruins might be one of the teams I think are a little bit more cautious and wait until maybe the final week of the trade deadline before they start making moves. So we're going to have to wait and see on the Bruins. Very likely chance to do think that they will move off some of those pending UFAs, and Frederic and Brazeau are really solid bottom 6 options who could bring really solid physicality to the teams acquiring them and really good returns to Boston. So personally, I do think Frederic and Brazeau are very likely to get dealt, but it does seem like they're going to be waiting a little bit before they make those sorts of moves. They're going to have to wait and see on that. Well, sticking with the Boston Bruins, there have been a couple of recent reports from different sources that have been linking Brad Marchand, who has been coming up in trade speculation over the past while, to the Edmonton Oilers. Now, the Oilers are a team who could definitely use another top 6 forward. Adding a guy like Brad Marchand in the Western Conference that's stacked right now would be a beautiful addition for the Oilers. Personally, I think that other teams in the West, such as maybe Colorado and Vegas, would also have some interest in this, but it does seem like Marchand to Edmonton is picking up traction. Now, I'm not exactly sure if the Oilers do have interest in acquiring Marchand or if they're more targeting defensemen like they have been trying to the entirety of the season, but it would be an interesting ad to see Marchand in Oilers colors. So interesting to note there, but it does sound like the Bruins are going to try and take their time when it comes to their pending UFAs. And it does seem like steam is picking up for Marchand going to the Oilers. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with those two things. Going over to the Colorado Avalanche, we've got two things to talk about when it comes to the Avalanche. One when it comes to David Pagnotta, one when it comes to Matt Larkin. David Pagnotta, the fourthperiod.com, was recently mentioning that Mario Ferraro is currently a name that the Sharks are still shopping and would be interested in moving. And a team that has some major interest is the Colorado Avalanche. We talked about how they could add like a second or third pair of defensemen to that team. Ferraro would fit that bill. I think he's signed for this year and next year at $3.25 million. Would be a sneaky add there for the Avalanche on that blue line. I'm not sure what they would have to give up in return to get for him, but I think this could be a really good pickup there for the Avalanche. And I'm sure the Avalanche are not the only team who have some interest in Mario Ferraro, so we'll have to wait and see what happens, but definitely keep your eye on Ferraro over the next little while as he's a potential option. Personally, I do think he will get moved before this year's trade deadline, and the Avalanche seem to be a potential landing spot, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. And Matt Larkin was recently talking about the Avalanche too, and he says that the Avalanche might try and make a swap of some sorts, trying to acquire Brock Nelson from the Islanders in exchange for Casey Mittlestadt. Now, Larkin says after the recent surge by the Islanders, Lamoureux's not going to part with pending UFAs easily, so he says maybe they try and do a one-for-one swap or something similar to that, where they move Casey Mittlestadt, who has not had a really great season, still signed for a couple of years, to the New York Islanders and acquire Brock Nelson, who's a pending UFA, but I think would be a lot more better fitted as the second-line center in Colorado than Mittlestadt is right now. So it would be an interesting swap. The Avalanche will get older, but I think they will get a lot more experience and goal-scoring prowess with Nelson, but the Islanders will get a younger player who still has some really good upside, Mittlestadt. So I think that could be an interesting swap. I'm not sure if there would have to be some more pieces involved. I'm not sure if the Avalanche would really want to do a one-for-one swap of Nelson for Mittlestadt, but it's an interesting concept, and maybe being worked on a little bit more, it could be an interesting trade. So we're going to have to wait and see on this, but the Avalanche apparently have some interest in Mario Ferraro and could try and acquire him, and Matt Larkin definitely thinks there's a possibility that the Avalanche and Islanders could work out a swap between Nelson and Mittlestadt, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to the Vancouver Canucks, two things to talk about when it comes to the Canucks. First, with Carson Soucy, when it comes to the Canucks and Soucy, apparently according to Elliot Friedman, Soucy is on the trade block, and there's a very likely chance that he will get moved at some point, either before deadline or in the offseason. He's got this year plus next year, I think, at just over $3 million cap hit. He's a solid third pair, maybe even second pair left shot defenseman, but after the recent acquisition of Marcus Pettersson and Elias Pettersson, defenseman Elias Pettersson, playing a lot better on the left side, Soucy's sort of fallen out of the left side of the defense, and unless he's playing his offside, there's really no spot for him on that blue line. So there's a possibility that we could see a Soucy trade. I think the Canucks will probably want to get some sort of a forward upgrade if they were to trade Soucy, or maybe like another third pair defenseman. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but the Canucks have made Soucy available, and he's a very likely trade candidate before the trade deadline, so we'll have to keep our eye on that. On top of that, when it comes to Brock Boeser, Murat Aids was talking about him of The Athletic, and he says that the Canucks could move Brock Boeser, and if they were, a team to watch out for would be the Winnipeg Jets. He says the Jets had a lot of interest in Boeser in his draft year before taking Kyle Connor in that draft, and he wouldn't be surprised if either in the trade market before the trade deadline or even in the offseason if he hits free agency, the Jets would be a player for Brock Boeser. Adding Boeser to that sort of a team would be fantastic. I mean, you could have the top six wingers of Velarde, Ehlers, Boeser, and Connor. That would be an outstanding top six wingers, along with Scheifele and whoever they have their second line center down the middle. Like, that would be a lethal top six if you add Boeser to that mix. I'm not sure what they would have to give up. My guess would be like a first round pick and solid prospect or someone who's on their roster, but still, I think that would be a great pickup there for the Jets if they do wind up having that happen. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. No guarantees Boeser gets moved. There's a very likely possibility he stays in Vancouver, so we're going to have to wait and see on that, but keep your eye on the Jets if Boeser's name does come available before their trade deadline, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. But that's what we're talking for today. I left your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do the Canucks move Boeser, and could the Jets be a landing spot? And do the Canucks move Soucy? Do the Bruins move Marchand, and could he go to Edmonton? And on top of that, do the Bruins move guys like Frederick and Barzal? The Avalanche trying to acquire a guy like Mario Ferraro or Brock Nelson, and if so, what sort of returns do you think those other two teams could get? Do the Buffalo Sabres move Dylan Cozens, and if so, where could he go? And are the Utah Hockey Club going to be big spenders at this year's free agent market? Definitely left your guys' thoughts on all of that. Plus Hartman appealing the suspension, Hinostroza being claimed off of waivers, and the Marcus Pettersson signing, as well as the injury updates. Definitely left your guys' thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk for today. Remember to like this video. If you're to subscribe below. Thank you for your support. We know to love you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below. So something else discuss in today's video. I also have a blog to make news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link that in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.